There was a question on lab values, so you're going to have to be a little more specific on that. But what I do want you to do is, especially those of you, the paramedic and advanced EMT, you have access to the um, comprehensive study guide. So if we go to the comprehensive study guide, actually on pages 125 to 129, there is a whole thing on different labs. But let's talk about probably the most important things to know. Okay. I literally teach a whole class on lab values alone. Like that's a whole multi-hour class. So that I'm not going to be able to cover all that tonight. But some things that you definitely want to know is you want to know a normal SpO2. Type it in the chat. What's the normal SpO2 value to measure oxygenation? Type that in the chat, everybody. A normal SpO2, which measures oxygenation, is we're going to go with 94 to 99%. Okay, cool. But just because it's normal does not mean everything is good. Examples would be carbon monoxide poison. They could have 100. Anemia, they could have 100, 99. They're not good. So the number, you have to take it into account with everything else that's going on. All right, what's our normal value for our end-tidal CO2? I want everybody typing in the chat. Okay, so our normal CO2 value, that's going to be 35 to 45 millimeters of mercury. I'm just going to write it as 45 on the left, 35 on the right. Okay, because of course, as these numbers go down, we have more alkalosis. As these numbers go up, we have more acidosis. Remember that when it comes to oxygenation, ventilation, perfusion, remember CO2 it tells us information about perfusion, but it also tells us information about the ventilation status. And CO2 behaves like an acid. If you've been around for a while, you've heard me say this 100 times, that too much acid is going to lead to acidosis. When we have acidosis, that's going to lead to vasodilation, which is dilation of the arterioles, and then ultimately that's going to lead to shock. Okay? What's our normal value for our blood glucose level? Okay, and different books will say different things there. I'm going to go with about 70 to 110 or 70 to 120. 70 to 110 is where I'm going to go. Okay, so once they get below 60, regardless of age, we're going to say they're hypoglycemic. All right, when it comes to knowing electrolytes, there's a whole list. Okay, like if you do a Chem 14, that's 14 separate values. But some big ones to know are the normal potassium level. So a normal potassium level is going to be, let's do that in blue, 3.5 to 5 is our normal potassium level. What's our normal sodium level? Type it in the chat, normal sodium level. And by the way, everything I'm mentioning is in the comprehensive study guide. So you can just do a search, and that's why I keep it as a live document so that you can easily just Control F or Command F to find, and you can just go straight to the page or look at the table of contents at the top. Our normal sodium value, okay, that's going to be, no, blanking is not the answer, but it is going to be 135 to 145. And that's going to be milliequivalents per liter. No problem, Eric. Okay, another value that is important to know is the H&H, the hemoglobin and hematocrit. So this is a function of how the red blood cells are doing. And this actually changes from male to female. Every lab is going to be a little different, but the numbers I want you to know are going to be around like 39 and 13. Or some books will say 42 and 14. But what you want to know is the first number here. This is your hemoglobin. No, I'm sorry. No, that's not right. This is your hematocrit. This first number is hematocrit, and this number is hemoglobin. The relationship of these is this number should be 3 times the other number. Okay? And they should always be in that 3-to-1 ratio. So for instance, let's say the hemoglobin is 12. What should the hematocrit be? 12 times 3 is 36. Let's say the hemoglobin is 11. 11 times 3 is 33. Let's say it's 10. 10 times 3 is 30. So they should always be in a 3-to-1 ratio like that. Okay. Now, at what point does this patient need a blood transfusion? Once this hematocrit, once the hemoglobin gets to like 8, So now the hematocrit is going to be approximately 24. At this level, they definitely need a blood transfusion. Okay. Now, when it comes to white blood cell count, so white blood cell kind of tells us how um, the likelihood of you having some kind of infection, whether it's a bacterial infection, a viral infection, we don't know just yet. But anybody know? I mean, I know the number, but does anybody know this before I say it? Okay. Anybody else? All right. Now, let me show you where we find all this just so that you can 128. All right, I'm going to go to the comprehensive study guide, and I want you to, if you haven't used this, here, let me back up for a second. If you haven't used this comprehensive study guide, I really want you using it because there is so much information in this. And I don't cover all of this in the course because it's not important for me to cover everything, nor do I have time to cover everything. But what's more important is for you to know how to figure out the answer even when you don't know everything. Let's see. It's at the bottom. Oh, it's right here. So I have a whole section on like the top lab values to know. So our typical sodium level, that's going here. Let's blow this up so you can see it. Okay, so our typical sodium level, that's going to be 135 to 145. Our typical potassium, our normal potassium is 3.5 to 5. So glucose, I've got 70 to 110. And by the way, this is pronounced BUN. It's not BUN. So that stands for blood urea nitrogen. So the BUN and creatinine, these are levels that tell us how well our kidneys are perfusing. Hemoglobin, and so hemoglobin is this number. So it varies from men to women. Our normal platelet count is 4. That shouldn't be 4. Let me actually change that right now. That should be 4,000. It's 4,000 to 11,000. Okay, that's our normal white blood count. Our normal platelet count is 150, and that's 150,000 to 400,000. Okay, but I've got all these different levels for you to kind of review. It's not so much that you need to know all of this. Now, when it comes to questions about lab values, what's more important than you knowing the number is figuring out like what kind of symptoms the patient is going to have. And what I encourage you to do is spend a little time reviewing that lab value section because I go into a lot of detail there, especially for those of you at the pro level. You have access to that in the bonus resources. Now, I do want to keep going though for a moment. So we just went over some partial things about blood gases. We just went over pH, PaCO2, bicarb, some other lab values that happen in your arterial blood gas. It'll tell you like the anion gap, the base excess. I'm not going to go into that for now. Another question that came up. Oh, this is a big thing. Okay, Garrett answered 4,000 to 11,000. Okay, that's going to be a white blood cell count. Oh, by the way, I'm glad you mentioned that. When it comes to white blood cells, another value is if you see something called a CBC with diff, that means differential. And what that's going to do is not only is it going to tell you the red blood cell count, the white blood cell count in terms of how many white blood cells, but for instance, for the white blood cells, it's going to break it down even further as to how many of each type of white blood cell. So when it comes to white blood cells, we have 5 main types. The way I remember this is never let mom eat beans. Now, some people learned it as never let monkeys eat bananas. I just like to go with never let mom eat beans. So the N stands for neutrophils. These are types of white blood cells. Neutrophils, what do they handle? They handle bacterial infections. The L stands for lymphocytes. Okay, these are going to be your B cells and your T cells that help fight infections. The M stands for monocytes. Okay, monocytes are what are going to be needed for us to ultimately end up making some platelets. We also have the E is eosinophils. Eosinophils help with allergic reactions. They also help with parasites. And then the B for basophils, they're also involved in like allergic reactions and other immune situations. Okay. And all of this is in the comprehensive study guide.